Welcome to the Fresh Preserving Test Kitchen. I'm Jessica Piper.
And I'm Linda Lee.
And where are you from, Linda?
I run the blog Garden Betty at gardenbetty.com. And a little bit about me, I run a home and garden blog. And I'm an avid canner. I love to can produce. I have so much vegetables and fruits and herbs, a lot of different things that come out of my garden. And so what I especially love about canning is pickling, because I can preserve everything that I've grown throughout spring and summer and then have a little tasty bit for the winter when I'm missing all of those fresh flavors.
Awesome. Well, for those of you who tuned in, obviously this is part of our Can It 4-day series. This is actually our Preserving Summer Canning series. This is our third video now, and if you guys tuned in last year, you may remember Linda, she did a refrigerator pickle, right? Is that what you did for us?
I did Fiesta peppers.
Yes, oh that's what it was, peppers, yes. So you may recognize her from last year. So, just a reminder, this is our big event each year. We get to really celebrate canning. We're doing this pickles today. We're actually doing a pickled beet, which is really, really cool. And so she's perfect to join us for pickling today. So I'm really excited to have her here with me and really excited to share this new recipe with all of you guys because it's brand new. We do have a new product out this year, and it's it's in partnership with McCormick. So this actually ties this back. Have you seen this?
I actually did. I have used it actually at home, and it's so much more convenient than having to get 6 jars of spices that I do have, but this is all right here in one package.
So there you go. So we're making today like super simple. So for those of you who are brand new and you're doing it for the first time, trust me, you can handle this. If you're more experienced, I've been with the brand for 12 and a half years. I've been doing this for a little while, so if you've had some more experience with this still is really convenient, just like Linda was saying. Yeah. Like having the spices pre-measured is really cool. So we'll just go ahead and hop on in. Just to let you guys know, we already have our jars pre-warming behind us, so we'll speak to those here in a little bit, but that's where they're hiding. We already have our beets. They've been cooked and peeled and quartered. And then we also have our onions. So this particular recipe, because the first thing that's always important when preserving is following a tested and approved canning recipe. So make sure we have it here right for us. Great recipe. Everything we have is great, and it's safe, so it's awesome. And it's on freshpreserving.com, so you can tune in and head over to the website and follow along with us if you like. But we have our golden beets. They're beautiful, right? You could do red beets, and we do have recipes that are tested for using this mix with for red beets, but we have an extension recipe we're going to show you here in a little bit, and the red beets kind of would turn the whole thing pink, so stay tuned for that.
Golden beets are nice because then the color doesn't run over everything else. You could really see them.
Exactly. So we're going to have fun with golden beets today. We've got the sweet onions, and then we have our brine already on the stovetop pre-warming to save some time for our magic kitchen here while we're broadcasting live. But all the directions for your brine are right here on the back. Like everything you need is conveniently located on the back of this. So it's just pickling, either pickled vegetables. I can't even talk today. They're vegetables, right? Beets?
Pickled beets.
Pickled beets, right? And then we have our sugar, our white vinegar, salt, and then the mix, right? So that's already, we had it just at a simmer, so we're good to go. I'm gonna go ahead and grab a jar.
Okay.
And we'll go ahead and get started. So today, we're using a really cool jar that's brand new this season. It is our sharing jar. Comes in a 4-pack. And the cool thing about the sharing jar is that for every case, every 4-pack that we sell, we provide 4 meals through Feeding America. So if you're not familiar with Feeding America, I highly recommend that you check it out. But it's a great organization that makes sure people are getting fed. Yeah, we have a lot of people who we don't want hungry. So if you feel like you want to spread the word and share the love, share home canning, this is a great jar for you to do that with. So we're just packing each jar with our pre-cooked beets and our onions. And the fun thing with this, you get to get your hands dirty. When you're doing jams and jellies, you use your ladle, and it's like, you're pickling. It's like,
this is more interactive.
Yeah, it's all hands-on, and like, woo, it's fun. So, pretty awesome.
So, these are bread and butter pickles, and I'm always asked, like, what does bread and butter mean? Because you're not eating it with bread and butter.
No, it's just, I think, sweeter, right? Because you have your dill pickle, and it's kind of more of a, it's got more of a kick to it, right?
I actually, the name supposedly came from these Illinois cucumber farmers. And it was a way for them to use up the surplus that they had of all these cucumbers that they couldn't sell. Like, maybe they're undersized or underweight.
Right.
So they just had all this abundance of cucumbers. And so they started making this specific pickled cucumber recipe using the spice mix.
Oh, well, look at that.
And they bartered it with grocery stores so that they could buy staples like bread and butter. But then the bread and butter refers to the spice mix, and you can, obviously adapt it to beets, or you can use it for cucumbers or for any vegetable.
That is awesome. Like,
that
I
flavor.
really had no. Did you have any idea? Probably not, because I didn't. So that's pretty cool. So okay, we look pretty good. We've got a funnel here.
Okay.
And I'm gonna grab a paper towel real quick. This is when it's nice to have a pro with you. Let you do some of the filling. So it's a 1/2-inch headspace on this particular recipe. So fill that on in. A little bit more.
And this smells amazing right now,
does.
too.
I wish we
very
had, like,
tangy and kind of spicy.
I wish we had smell-o-vision. Like, why? It's 2017. Why don't we have smell-o-vision yet?
Scratch and sniff TV.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Looks like we need.
A little bit more.
Yeah. And with this jar, it's got an interesting shape to it, so it's you got to kind of watch where you're filling.
Okay.
Looks pretty good. We're going to, so now, last Wednesday we did a jam recipe, and with jams and jellies, you don't necessarily need to remove air bubbles because they're soft and they fill up all the space. With the pickles, we do want to remove those, so we have our Headspace tool, which is also a bubble freer tool.
Yeah. 2 for
Ooh,
1.
2 for 1. And so I'll let you go down the sides and free all the air bubbles out of there. Why this is important is because of the headspace, right? So we'll be measuring the headspace next, and every recipe has a specific headspace that's based on the type of food that it is, and that allows for food expansion as well as for making sure you get a good seal. If you have air bubbles, and then once you remove them, they're going to actually adjust your headspace at the top. So we want to make sure we're working with a 1/2-inch today. So we'll take our little stair step tool. Need a little bit more brine.
There you go.
Awesome.
Okay.
You want to wipe the rim. So this is important regardless of what type of food you're preserving. You want to get the rim all clean just to make sure there are no food particles between the lid and the jar itself. So center the lid. Secure the band just fingertip tight, right?
Yeah.
And I'll let you put that in and grab the next jar. So the reason we always say fingertip tight, like what does that actually even really mean, right? It just means to the point of resistance. When you start to feel the lid, or excuse me, the band get a little snug, then that's when you stop screwing the band on. So why that's important is when you're processing, you actually need for that headspace, that oxygen that's in the jar, to be able to leave the jar. And the lid itself is just being held in place by the band. It's just kind of like a placeholder. It doesn't need to keep it on there really tight because you need that oxygen to be able to leave. And so if you've ever experienced a buckled lid, that's pretty much a clear sign that the band was screwed on too tightly. And what happens is too much pressure builds up inside your jar and it's going to cause that lid to buckle, which is extremely better than glass breaking, right? Like, or not sealing. And you can always reprocess if you have a bit, or buckled lid, that is. So no worries, but the best way to prevent that, obviously, is just adjusting to fingertip tight so it'd be just a little snug. Packing away.
Oh, and the nice thing about using golden beets for this recipe is that now your fingers won't be stained as well. So I'm thinking about that.
That's actually a really good point. Because, yeah, you can use beets to tie-dye with and all kinds of stuff. And
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of beets, but I don't like when it gets on my clothes. Oopsies. Yeah, I wasn't really going for pink, but hey, yeah, I like pink. I guess I could just start staining all my clothes in beet juice. That'd be okay. I'd be okay with that. So this particular recipe will make either 2 quarts or 4 pints. So obviously we're using a pint jar today for this particular recipe, but whichever you prefer is up to you. So again, we're just filling to a 1/2-inch headspace.
Okay.
Looks pretty good. Go down, we remove air bubbles.
Fill that up.
And the reason it's important to use a plastic utensil for removing the air bubbles is if you use metal, like a lot of folks I'll see pictures on Facebook or online, and they're using a metal knife, and that can actually
crack the jar.
Yeah, start to etch the glass over time, and then that can cause the jar to break, and no one has time for that, right? Like, you put all this time and effort and love and preparation into preserving that you really don't want to have to deal with that. Looks like we need a little more brine. And sometimes I hear folks talk about like, oh, I just fill it to this certain space, place on the jar. We still recommend that you want to go ahead and measure that headspace, just because each jar is a little different. The threads on different jars may be a little bit different from jar to jar. It's not 100% foolproof. So use either a ruler that you dedicate to use in your kitchen, or use the Headspace tool that we manufacture.
Yeah. I actually love the Headspace tool because of the stair stair
right?
treads. You just know what it is without having to actually look. Like, is that a 1/4 inch or is that a 1/2 inch?
Right. It's dishwasher safe. You can wash it up, and so just snug. Awesome. There we go. Take that back. There we go. So 2 down, 2 to go. Pretty simple stuff, I think, right? Like, even though the recipe's a little more dynamic than what we did last Wednesday with the jam, same process, right? If you can follow a recipe and you can boil water, you can definitely preserve.
Yeah. And I find like pickles for a beginner canner, they're so easy, because there's not that much cooking involved. If you know how to simmer spices on the stove, then
Right.
that's all that you need to do.
I get asked a lot, what do you always teach people? What's the first thing that you're going to teach someone that you're hoping to get into canning? And I usually say jams, because honestly, that's what I usually do. When we have trainings here in the office for any of the internal folks, it's always either like a jam or a jelly. But then when I get asked what's the easiest, pickles. Pickles are by far the easiest thing to preserve. The only thing with pickles, the reason I don't usually do that as my beginner demo recipe, is because you don't get that instant gratification that you would with jam, right? When it's hot, like last Wednesday when we were done, you just scoop the pan out, right? Like, you can eat it.
For pickles.
With pickles, you have to wait like 4 to 6 weeks for those flavors to really absorb into the produce that you're canning, whether it's beets or it's cucumbers or even like refrigerator pickles. You definitely want them to sit as long as possible to really absorb all of the flavors that you're putting into those jars. So that's the reason I don't, because you don't get that instant gratification. And I feel like that's part of the excitement of learning, is having like that instant gratification. But if you're up for it, honestly, pickles are the easiest. So it's up to you. Do you want to wait, or do you want to have instant gratification? So it's a personal preference, really.
Sometimes I feel that pickles are a little bit more versatile too in how you can use them.
Oh, absolutely.
Like my favorite thing to do.
Eat the whole jar at one sitting, because that's what I do.
I do that too. And I'm not the type to do it, but my husband loves to drink the pickle juice afterward. So he loves bread and butter pickle juice. It's a little too much for me, but
I'm with your husband. I will eat every pickle in a jar, no joke. I will sit down at dinner, because it's just me and the cat, right? So I can eat whatever I want. I will eat an entire jar of pickles, and I'm okay with it. And then I may or may not drink the brine. It actually mixes well with adult beverages if you're into that kind of thing. I wouldn't really know, but it totally mixes well with adult beverages if that's your type of thing. So it's super versatile. And then you don't have any weight. You have no waste that way.
correct.
Yeah. So drink your brine. It's good stuff. Or let your husband drink all the brine, or invite me over. I'll drink all your brine. It's fine.
I also like to slice these up and put them into different types of salads, like green salad, use it as a relish for hamburgers, hot dogs. So
there you go. Yeah, they're super versatile, right? And we have a ton of different pickle recipes, whether it's on freshpreserving.com or in the Ball Blue book or in the new Back to Basics book, which we've got, actually I can hop off real quick. Right here, Back to Basics. It came out this year, right? So tons of recipes in here. And then last year we had the all-new book of canning and preserving that came out, and it has a ton of recipes too. They even have recipes in that book for fermentation. So if you want to get real wild, you can do some fermentation. And one of my favorite recipes out of that particular book is I started making yogurt, homemade yogurt.
Oh, that's nice.
It's really nice, and it is the epitome of easy.
And it
boiling
blows away
milk,
store-bought yogurt.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's the whole point of canning. It's just like blowing away like what you can buy at the store.
Absolutely.
You know exactly what goes into every jar.
Yep.
No preservatives or anything.
Well, and you can accommodate your family's nutritional needs or dietary needs, right, when you're preserving at home. So pretty awesome, really. So this is our fourth jar, right? Yeah. Fantastic. So something I try to do when I'm at home and preserving is I always try to keep a couple of jars, additional jars, warm, and sometimes even different sizes, because you can always preserve in a jar that's smaller than what the recipe indicates. You just cannot preserve in a jar larger than what the recipe indicates. So especially if I'm making jam, I'll keep a few 4-ounce jars in my canner pre-warming, so if I don't have enough to fill an 8-ounce jar, I can fill a 4-ounce jar and still process that with my 8-ounce jars. Same thing with pickles. Yeah, that's one of my little tips from Canning with Jess in Indiana. That's what I do. So, and then I don't really have to worry about any kind of waste. And just like any other recipe that we have, if you don't fill a jar, you want to get that, let it cool and get it in your refrigerator and eat it in a few days. Except jams and jellies, you have 3 weeks. Pickles, you have a few months actually to consume your pickles. But you can either do that, enjoy now, or if you use a freezer-safe jar, you can go ahead and freeze those too. So I was talking about when I made raspberry jam in our last broadcast, and I didn't have enough for a full jar, so I just enjoy now method.
Do you have any tips for people who maybe they ran out of brine?
Well,
what do you suggest for them?
Well, the nice thing is, so if you're using one of the recipes in our blue book or freshpreserving.com or any of our other publications, you probably have the bottles of all the spices, right? So you can whip up another batch of brine really quickly. I've had to do that when I'm doing demos at retailers. I've had to, because sometimes when you get to talking like this, the brine starts to kind of boil off and you end up not having enough sometimes, so I'll just whip up another batch really quick. If you're using the McCormick's cards here, you'd have to use a whole nother package because these are already pre-measured for you. So that's one of the perks to going from one of our recipes that's in one of our publications or on freshpreserving.com. Or you just eat the beets. I mean, come on. Beets are like surprisingly delicious. I think people, for whatever reason, beets are one of those foods that people are kind of like, I don't think so. I'm not really into that. But they're so good.
They are.
They're really good.
Especially after you've boiled them or roasted them, it brings out their sweetness.
Yes.
So much more.
There's a particular restaurant in town that if they have Harvard beets, I will get 2 servings because I'm that obsessed with beets. So I don't know. I really like beets a lot. I hope you like beets too. But if not, don't worry, because we have another recipe that you can try. We actually have a refrigerator pickle recipe. It's a pickled radish. And the nice thing about this recipe is that it is a refrigerator pickle, which requires no processing. So you've got a brine here that looks like it's cooked down a little bit.
Caramelized.
The joys of live television, right, folks? So, and you don't have to worry about having like a super warm jar because your food that you're putting in is room temperature. So that's why you can use our sharing jar, and I'll let you pack that. While you pack that, I'm going to actually we have a steaming rack that we put on top of our jars when we use our Fresh Tech appliance back here, just to make sure that our jars don't topple over. So I'm going to do that and let you pack real quick.
All right.
Let me hop back here. But it's just a little steaming rack that sits in the pot. We'll place it on your jars. And then we turn it all the way to canning. So if you have a glass top stove like I do at home, this appliance is a lifesaver because my glass top stove I can't preserve on. Obviously, having this appliance I can preserve at home and not my mother's, although I love you, Mom, so I'll be over later. But I don't have to do that at her house anymore, so it's kind of cool. I really do like that appliance. We got kind of a thick brine. Let's go with it, though.
All right.
We'll see. We'll make it work. Well, and you know what the beauty is? If we really need to, we can probably use some of that other brine as well, just for today's case and purpose of showing what it would look like. But the recipe,
it's nice and thick.
We had a pre-warming before we came on camera, trying to make things efficient and fun, right? So,
but it still works for the recipe,
and
that's the beauty of quick pickles.
It's like, well, yeah, because you know what? When it comes to canning, like we're always saying, follow the recipe, don't alter the recipe. Changes the pH, it changes this, it changes we don't know the processing time, right? We're like, no, don't do it.
But with quick pickles?
With quick pickles in the refrigerator, the world is basically your oyster. I mean, you want to make sure you have the right acidity in your brine for sitting in your refrigerator, but Otherwise, you can do any kind of vegetable that you want. It doesn't have to be just. So this is how live television works. This is what we do. But the recipe that we have with the brine that we let cook down just a little too much.
Wait, you can see the little caramelized threads.
It's going to have a great flavor having a caramelized brine. I've never really had caramelized brine before, but it's going to be delicious.
Yes.
It's going to be delicious. I don't have a doubt about it, to be honest. But the brine, the brine is a sugar, water, salt, mustard seed, and ground pepper with vinegar. Like, how easy is that?
So if I were not on live TV, I would actually whip up a very quick brine to fill up the rest of this jar.
But it's okay-ish.
Yeah, it works.
It works. So when it works properly and you have it in your refrigerator, what do you do with a pickled radish? Just one do. Let me tell you what we can do with a pickled radish. We actually have these adorable little sandwiches. How cute are these?
They're kind of like a tea
I'll let you
crostini.
hold that, and I'll move these.
They're like super, super thin sandwich bread with a smear of mayo,
Yeah.
arugula, and once these have been in the fridge, quick pickling for a week at least,
Yeah.
then they turn this really nice shade of pinkish red, and so your pickles
Beautiful.
turn out beautiful as well. So.
I'm going to eat these as soon as this broadcast is over because I also, so I was talking about how much I love beets. I love radishes so much. I plant them in my garden and they grow like weeds all the time, all the time. And then I just take them out and rinse them off real quick and I'll just eat them like candy.
Oh, and if you're growing your own radishes, instead of using the arugula on the little toasty bits, you can use radish leaves. And then that adds like a, because radish leaves are also kind of peppery, little kick. That's a beet.
It is. Radish.
Radish.
I get really excited about beets and radishes and I'm going to eat these.
So normally the radish greens are very peppery like arugula, and you can use them the same way. So it could be like a whole top to tail recipe.
Less waste. I like it.
Yeah, less waste. This is what preserving is all about.
Absolutely. I really like that idea. I'm gonna do that. So stay tuned. Maybe next broadcast I can talk about my salad that I use my radish leaves and my pickled radishes and ate it all because it's probably delicious. So also, actually I'm gonna check this real quick. So what's gonna happen with when you're canning, right? You have to wait for the water to come to a boil. And so we're waiting for this to come to a boil. So I doubt we'll get a chance to get through the entire process today because this particular recipe, the beets, does take a 30-minute process. So once it comes to a boil, we'll start that. But while we're waiting, we have yet another recipe for you today. So extension recipe. We just wanted to make sure that everything we're doing through this whole broadcast, you understand how you can apply it outside of just doing something really cool that sounds awesome, like pickled beets.
And how you can use it instead of just eating it out of a jar like we do.
Yeah, or like straight out of the
putting
ground.
it in a real recipe.
Yeah. Right. Awesome. So we do have a roasted potato beet salad, pickled beet salad, which is really unique. And so I mentioned earlier why we chose to do the golden beets versus the red. And Linda made the comment about how red kind of makes everything turn pink. I mean, maybe you're into pink potato salad. That could be a thing. Maybe in October, like at your family gathering, you could definitely pull that off. But this is just a really neat recipe. We have roasted potatoes that we already roasted. They are like room temperature.
Yeah, they're cold so that they can actually soak up the dressing better.
Yeah, so we have those done. And then we have all of our ingredients that we have also available for you on freshpreserving.com. So we have in the dressing of sorts here, it's olive oil, salt, pepper, sour cream, Dijon mustard, and red wine vinegar. The cool thing about using the sour cream is it actually reduces some of the fat content or the calories, and it's a Russian-style potato salad, so who knew? So we already had everything kind of pre-measured in the jar, and we're just whisking it together.
Yep.
Ooh, pour these in for you. We'll blend those together.
Okay, toss them and get them all
It already smells awesome.
nice and coated with dressing.
It's looking pretty good.
Right. Then through movie magic, our pickled beets are already done and processed, and we've taken them out of the jar.
And chopped them.
And coarsely chopped them.
Well, we had an event back in July where we did some of these recipes and had these recipes already preserved and on the shelf. So these have actually been with us since the end of July. It's the beauty of home canned food, right? Like you have this shelf life for up to a year, 18 months if you're using our new Sure-Tight lids. Obviously, people have success keeping them in their pantry for much longer than that. And as long as your jars stay sealed, then obviously they're safe to eat.
I'm embarrassed to say that I still have 5-year-old jars in my pantry.
It happens. You might want to eat those.
Yeah.
You
And
should have let us
do.
know. We could have done like extension recipes for those. Yeah. we could have helped you with your canning problem.
Yes.
Right?
My canning problem is actually I need to give them away more. I need to share more.
You need to share more. You get our sharing jars and then share more.
Yes.
See, there you go. I solved your problem. Isn't that great?
All right. So these are all done.
Put them in our dish. So again, if you're going to any kind of party or we're going into, it's like football season almost, right? Like preseason's all happening now. This is a great thing that you can take to a tailgate party or any kind of cookout. We have Labor Day coming up, so you could take this to your Labor Day party, serve it. It smells awesome. It's going to taste delicious.
Or because your beets are already preserved, you can actually save it for the holidays as well.
That's true. Absolutely. It'd still be fun at like Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Like a nice different side dish even for Christmas.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the golden beets just add such a fun color to the whole thing, right? It's not, I almost feel like it's not expected, right? If you told someone I'm bringing beet and potato salad, they expect it to be like pink or red, and then for you to show up and be like, oh, it's this beautiful golden color. And we've got a little garnish here.
To make it look beautiful.
Absolutely. I mean, we made it with love, so it has to look beautiful. And we'll put some of these on. There you have it, folks.
Roasted potato and pickled beet salad.
Yeah. Who knew? Who knew? We knew, clearly. I mean, we're doing this right now. So pretty awesome applications for pickles, right? And like you said, like people kind of forget how much fun you can have with a pickle.
Or how to eat it, you know.
Right.
Different ways that you can use it.
Yeah, eat the entire jar. Or you can make a beautiful potato salad, like whichever you prefer. So there are some of the really cool extension recipes that we have. What I'd like to do now is just kind of walk through what people can expect when they're done processing.
Okay.
Sound good to you?
Sounds good.
All right, so I have a jar here of our pickled beets that we preserved actually for that event in New York back at the end of July. And so they look gorgeous, right? They're beautiful.
The color is really nice.
I know.
Because then you have to compare it with these, which
Are
are
also
also
nice.
beautiful and delicious, but I mean, you can't see what it is. These are also beets, but they're red beets.
Yeah, still amazing. And I would eat the entire jar. However, we're going to focus on these now. So when you get done processing, so after your 30 minutes of boiling, which I don't even think we're to a boil, and we're not to even boil yet. So it takes a little time for that to come up, right? So once you get to a boil, set your timer for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, you're going to take the lid off and turn it all the way off, or take your turn your heat off on your stove if you're doing a stovetop method. Turn off your heat and let it cool for 5 minutes. And that's going to kind of let everything naturally come down together. And again, you still take a risk of thermal shock coming out of the canner, so keep that in mind. You're going to take them out, and then you want to put down a towel or like a wooden cutting board, something that's going to buffer that temperature change. We typically use towels in here, and so place the jars out, space them about 1 to 2 inches apart so they can cool evenly. And then the hardest part, this is always the hardest part of canning, you have to sit there and wait for 12 to 24 hours before you touch your jars.
But the fun thing is hearing them pop.
I know, it is really fun.
Today.
Yeah, so when you remove your jars, you'll hear like these ping sounds or popping sounds, which is like instant gratification because you're like, I did it, they sealed. But you want to leave them undisturbed for that 12 to 24 hours because they're still piping hot, right? And if you move them, you take a risk of busting that seal, right? And so it may not reseal after that, and it's just better to leave them be for 12 to 24 hours. So that allows all the food inside to cool, everything's good to go. When you're done, you're going to take your band off. You want to make sure it's concave. And go around the jar and add a little bit of pressure. Make sure it doesn't come off. And then you want to wipe the outside of your jar off before you put it away, because if you have any food particles, like let's say our Headspace was a little too great and we had some siphoning that may have happened, those, seasonings and things may be under the lid and may not have sealed, right? So you want to, or they got out and now they're stuck to the outside of your jar. So you want to wipe them all down so it doesn't get gross, and then you can just store it. Personally, I store without. I just keep my bands if I'm going to give. I just grab one out of my little drawer that I have and put it on and head on out. So either way is fine. There's like this big debate about what to do. Like, have you noticed that on like Facebook or online before?
Whether to keep the bands on or off. I think like most people, because they come out of the canner, they just, and it's all popped, all the lids are fine, and then they just stash them away instead of removing
Cleaning
them.
And so
that's something that they should, people should keep in mind when you're canning, to check and make sure that it's completely dry.
Yeah, exactly. So either way is fine, and we get that question all the time. Yes, you can do it either way. Just like I said, make sure your lid's dry, your band's dry. Everything will be fine, because obviously if you don't have one of our one-piece storage caps, you need both pieces if you're going to put it back in your refrigerator. If you don't consume the whole thing in one sitting like I do, you do need this. So just keep that in mind, and you can store it away, and you're good to go. So pretty easy peasy. I mean, pickles are about as easy as it comes when you're preserving anything new, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, they are. The hardest part is just the prep.
Yeah, and then the waiting.
The waiting, yes.
Because you have to wait like 4 to 6 weeks to allow the flavors to really penetrate.
Yeah, if you're good. If you're not me.
And you open it up.
And I open them sooner.
It happens. It just changes the flavor a little bit. But it's, again, personal preference, right? If you don't care about that as much as someone who made, I guess I really don't care either, let's be honest. I probably would break into them too. So personal preference, but obviously the longer you let them set, the more flavor you're going to get. And once you open a pickle, you have about 3 months to consume it in your refrigerator. So where jams and jellies is 3 weeks, it's a little bit different with a pickled product. So whose pickles stay in there for 3 months after you open them?
Yeah. Unless you're greedy and you open several types of pickles.
Well, yeah, because you probably have a wide variety, so you could totally do that.
Yes.
Well, there you have it, folks. All right, well, with that being said, I guess we'll go ahead and wrap it up. So I appreciate you so much coming out here and hanging out with us for your second visit here for our our Can It Forward Day. This is our 7th, your second. So it's been really awesome having you here. I really appreciate it, and hope to see you again. And for folks watching here live, I hope to see you again on Wednesday, August 23rd. We're doing a sriracha ketchup and a habanero apricot jelly, and you won't even believe what we're about to do with those in our extension recipes. So tune in, and don't forget to can it forward. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.